My name is Josh McKelvin. I'll be your moderator this evening for this debate and the one after that. But on behalf of the President's Office, Dr. Wayne Lesperance, administration, student body, faculty, and everyone here at New England College, thank you very much for attending the Live Free or Die debates. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the Board of Trustees as well. Welcome you here. All right, let's introduce our candidates. We drew from a hat to determine podium position and who would go first and last and in between. We're going to start by introducing Bill Hamlin. He is a commodities trader who also dabbles in real estate. He was a graduate of Dartmouth College, but in his younger years was an altar boy and an Eagle Scout. Yes, and Bill lives in Hanover with his wife of 28 years, and they have 2 daughters. Please welcome Bill Hamlin. You're here, sir. Our next candidate is Vikram Mansuramani. Vikram has worn a lot of hats in his professional life as an economist and author. He's also spent 5 years as a lecturer at Harvard University, serves as an advisor in several major companies. Vikram has earned a PhD and 2 master's degrees from MIT as well as bachelor's from Yale. Do you miss anything in the Ivy League there? You got them all covered. No, he lives in Lincoln with his wife and 2 children. Welcome, Vikram, please. And our final candidate is Lily Tang Williams. Lily was born in China, living at a very young age under communist oppression before moving to the U.S., where she earned a master's degree in administration and planning at the University of Texas, Austin. Lily's professional experience includes work as a medical social worker, the owner of her own consulting firm, and she lives in Ware and is married. So welcome all our candidates. Thanks very much. Backstage, you all drew from a hat to determine the order, and we're going to start with Mr. Hamlin with your opening statement. Take 60 seconds, please.
Hi, I'm Bill Hamlin. I'm a common sense conservative. I was raised in a middle-class home. My father was a chemist. My mother was a nurse. I was raised as a Catholic. I was also an altar boy and an Eagle Scout. In high school and college, my first real job was working on a farm. That job taught me the value of hard work, a value I share with the people of New Hampshire. At age 18, I was lucky enough to get into Dartmouth College, and I headed to Hanover, and I fell in love with New Hampshire. And that's really why I'm here today. After college, I headed to Manhattan, where I met my wife, Rowena. We've been married for 28 years. We've got 2 lovely daughters. Now, I believe our country's heading in the wrong direction. We've got open borders, rising crime, the worst inflation since the 1970s, and the price of living is out of control. Our very way of life is under threat. So I believe it's time for common sense, conservative leadership to help steer us back on course, and I believe I can do it. I also fully support Donald Trump. So I'm a common sense conservative that wants to take the values of the people of New Hampshire to Washington to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Next up, Vikram Mansuramani, sir. Please.
Perfect. Well, nice to see so many friendly faces here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Josh, for moderating. Thank you to New England College for hosting this. And thank you to AARP for hosting this. Thank you, Lily and Bill, for being here. Listen, I'm not a politician. I'm a business guy. And what's happened is we have too many career politicians. We have too many lifelong bureaucrats. They've broken the economy. They've screwed up Washington, D.C. It's a mess. What we need is a businessman, not a politician, to go down to Washington, D.C. to actually fix this. We need people with real life experience, not people who have lived solely in the Washington bubble. To do that, we need folks who have a diversity of experiences. I've spent time on the ground in almost 80 nations. I've spent time starting businesses. I've signed the front of a paycheck, not just the back, and I understand the real world. What we need is a businessman, not a politician, in D.C. to fix this mess.
Thank you, sir. Lily Tang Williams, take 60 seconds, please.
My name is Lily Tang Williams. I was born and grew up in communist China. I came here 36 years ago to attend a graduate school to also escape China's oppressive regime. And I feel extremely welcome here, and I become American citizen 30 years ago. I gave up my Chinese citizenship because I embrace American ideals. I embrace our constitutions and founding fathers and original intent for constitutional rights of citizens. And I'm running to serve the people of New Hampshire, to give back to the state, the country who have open arms, welcome me, and I'm very proud a Granite Stater. And I come here with nothing. Today I'm here running for Congress. This is the embodiment of American dream. I hope I can be inspirational story for lots of young people in here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate it. You've already met our panelists, so we're going to get started. First question coming from Jeff Chittister from Morning Update WFVA.
Today, America is faced with another school shooting. As we prepare for this debate, latest reports confirm 4 students were shot and killed, 9 injured at Appalachia High School in Georgia. The firearms discussion stirs immense emotion, especially at times like these. Where do you stand on firearms, and what policies would you support if elected to Congress? And how would you approach the conversation for all involved?
Start with Lily Tang Williams, please.
Well, I'm the only candidate here on the stage got national organization called Gun Owners America endorse me. 18 New Hampshire gun store owners endorse me. They trust me to defend our God-given right for self-defense and also bear arms against tyranny. Unfortunately, we have mass shootings in our country. We need not to blame law-abiding citizens, have the right to bear arms, and not blame guns. We need to look at the real cause of the gun shootings. My husband grew up in Texas. They used to go to 7-Eleven, buy a gun, and all high school students know how to shoot. So we need to look at the moral decline and our country's mental health issues and community partnership to help people who needed to deal with lots of issues at the local level. Gun-free zone, I keep saying, actually can cost lives. So we need to train our young people, and then later the people volunteer to arm themselves. And we are constitutional carry state.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Manshir-Amani.
Yeah, so I think it's appropriate to just pause and say, this is a horrifying event. And my heart goes out to those who've been really affected. The parents, 4 unfortunately dead from this event, others injured. This is a horrible thing. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that. Yes, when it comes to gun control and some of the things, we have bigger challenges. Look, I've been endorsed by the New Hampshire Firearms Alliance, our coalition with the highest rating. But I also think it's appropriate to think about the root causes here. And the root causes are mental health illness. We have all sorts of issues. I frankly think some of the social media algorithms that are out there are creating anxiety and depression. Some of the climate alarmism is teaching kids that the world is ending. This is an unfortunate situation that requires A, compassion, but B, some real ability to focus on root causes and address them, again, with compassion and understanding, and also an understanding that actually people need help. Let's get them the help they need.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And same question for you, Mr. Hamlin.
I echo the Vikram's thoughts about the parents. As a father of 2 young daughters, I can't imagine the grief the parents are going through. This is just a tremendous tragedy, one of many. Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. But I think we live in a world where we need to protect our children, and I think part of that starts with having security at our schools. It's an unfortunate reality, and I think the first thing we need to do is look at the situation and see if anything could have been done in terms of security at the school. Now, I agree that mental health is an issue, and the last thing we need are arms in the hands of the mentally ill. But I think we need to start with defending our schools and appropriate security. Now, as far as the Second Amendment goes, I have an A rating from the NRA, and I'm a fierce defender of the Second Amendment. And, when tragedies like this happen, it's easy to turn to the Second Amendment and look for solutions, but I think the solutions lie in better security at our schools.
Thank you very much. Next question is going to come from Melanie Plenda, the Granite State News Collaborative. Let's start this one with Vikram Manshir-Amani.
For several years, young people have been leaving New Hampshire after college to seek greater opportunities and affordability elsewhere. As a member of Congress, what would you do to combat the so-called brain drain in New Hampshire and the 2nd District?
Well, we should acknowledge why we have it, right? The lack of affordability is because of the inflation. The inflation is because the government has printed too much, borrowed too much, spent too much, and handed out too much. Combine that with wonderful leadership in the State House here in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire has this supply-demand imbalance, right? We have too much demand for housing, et cetera, and that makes it, relative to the supply, a problem. And by the way, the Democrat solution here is actually comical, right? I mean, we have a supply and demand imbalance in housing, and so rather than promoting more supply, Kamala Harris wants to give out money to create more demand. It's going to compound the problem. So I think what we need to do, the best thing we can do at the federal level, is to actually control inflation, lower interest rates, increase affordability, and make life better for everyone in New Hampshire, including the young.
Same question for you, Mr. Hamlin.
It's interesting. We've done such an amazing job in so many ways in New Hampshire with low taxes, good quality of life, that we see a housing shortage due to people moving to our state. But one of the big problems we have with business is the high price of energy. We have the second highest price of energy in the country, and this is a real problem. My wife and I recently took a handgun safety course at Enfield Outing Club, and we use Live Free or Die ammo. And the manufacturer of this ammo, he said the biggest problem he faces is the high cost of energy. So I think if we want to create jobs here, we need to do something to address the high cost of living, the high price of energy, the high cost of housing. And that starts with bringing down inflation, bringing down the price of energy, bringing down the cost of living.
Ms. Williams, how do we keep the best and brightest here in New Hampshire?
I have a 1-minute video with my young volunteers. It's so sad to hear young people to tell me that they cannot afford to rent, to buy. They might have to go somewhere else after graduation. It's caused by, high demand for our quality of life in New Hampshire, but the low supply of housing. And why there's some low supplies? Because, the inflation, cost of labor, gas, energy, number all go up. And also, interest, mortgage rates are high. If developers, and they don't have an incentive to sell, to be profitable, nobody's going to buy, and they're not going to build. So reduce supplies. So what the federal government should do is really bring down the inflation and bring down interest rate and the mortgage rate. And that way that later, energy independent and bring down cost of everything that people can buy, can afford to live in New Hampshire, the quality of life. And let the illegals come in, drain our financial resources too. Housing is already in high demand. Well, I don't know how many coming from Massachusetts. So I think there are lots of issues involved. And zoning law is another thing. We need to reform our local zoning laws by the local people.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Next question coming from Kevin Landrigan, the union leader. Let's start with Mr. Hamlin on this.
Do you agree or disagree with former President Donald Trump that the 2020 election was stolen? And whoever wins this time, Vice President Kamala Harris or Trump, do you think we can be confident in the outcome in November this year?
Well, first of all, I don't agree that it was stolen. Unfortunately, I agree that President Biden won the election. Now, what I'm focusing on right now, and what I think most Americans are focusing on, the people I speak to are focusing on, is the next election, in particular, my election in CD2. And I've been up and down the state from Canada down to Massachusetts speaking to voters, and nobody asked me about 2020. What people ask me about are the border. They ask me about inflation. They ask me about my ideas, what I'm going to do to bring down the cost of living. And let me tell you, when it comes to the border, I will do everything possible to secure the border. That's what the people care about. That's what the people I speak to care about.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mountshire Amani, same question to you.
Yeah, look, I think President Biden is in fact the president of the United States today, right? I wish it weren't the case. It's the case, right? We need to get out and vote. Those of us that are Republicans, we need to get bigger turnout, and that won't be a risk. I think, Kevin, your question was, what about this year? And I think, look, New Hampshire does it right. I have comfort and confidence in the New Hampshire election integrity process. We are pretty good at it here. The machines are disconnected. We have had an election integrity commission, and I have confidence that the election will be won or lost based on the number of votes cast.
Ms. Williams, do you believe that the election was rigged at the national level, and can we be confident in November?
Well, at the beginning, I wasn't sure because I was looking forward to see the debates and evidence January 6th. Then riot happened. Everything just rushed, through. And recently, 1 week ago, mainstream media do not report this. Mark Zuckerberg come out to actually say he was pressured by our government to censor people on COVID and also about the Biden stories and family Hunter Biden laptop. If you look at all this censorship and also look at the COVID-19, made the mail-in ballots and change state laws last minute, there are lots of questions we need to ask. And I hope our journalists in this country will report the whole truth, but not just focus on politics. Because Mark Zuckerberg's rhetoric and his proof is not being reported by lots of mainstream media. I still have lots of questions, but I trust our system. I hope 2024 will be the year we will truly and get our election integrity going too.
So does that mean Lily agrees the election was legitimate or not?
I have lots of questions. I'm entitled to ask questions.
The election was several years ago, Lily. Is President Biden?
Yes or no? Do you believe the election was stolen in 2020? Then we got to move on.
Was it stolen?
I
Was
have.
it stolen?
It was not sure stolen because of other reasons people talk about. But after Mark Zuckerberg come out, it was not honest. It was not honest.
So what, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Is it stolen or not? Was the election stolen? 2020.
Who stole it? Biden?
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
It's time to
Biden the
get Mr. Hamlin in this.
Is Biden the
same
legitimate
question for
president,
you.
Lily?
Mr. Hamlin, do you believe it was stolen? And Vikram might
the
hold
question.
you
Lily's
to-
having trouble answering it.
Sir,
I do not believe it was stolen.
we got to keep going. You do not believe it was stolen. How can we be confident moving forward in the elections?
I agree, by the way. It is interesting that Mark Zuckerberg finally comes out and reveals that he was censored, and I find that appalling, but I still don't think the election was stolen.
All right, and unless he lets the air out of my tires in the parking lot, I need to get a yes or no out of you, Ms. Williams. Do you believe the 2020 election was stolen?
Even for me?
Yes.
To say yes or no?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes
Not
or
that
no?
hard.
Well, why do you have to use a stolen? How about not honest? I feel like it's not honest because the Mark Zuckerberg came out and also the state changed laws. My questions never got answered. Do I entitled to ask questions about our most important election? And we need to make sure 2024.
We got to move on.
Honest
We got to
election.
move on. You're not going to get a yes or no. We got to move on, Mr. Monterey.
So it was not stolen. It's very clear. You'll always have a clear answer from me. That's the job of being a congressperson.
Please play by the rules, or else there's a big tube that'll drop down over you guys, keeping you. It's a silent chamber.
Well, some things are not yes or no. It's not that simple.
Let's go to Jeff. Talk about budget and spending at the federal level. Jeff?
And directed at who?
Yeah, well, because he's so energetic. Let's go with Vikram.
Okay, there we go. The country's debt has reached a mind-boggling numbers, and the trend of out-of-control government spending shows no sign of slowing. This occurs as everyday Granite Staters struggle to make ends meet. So what areas of the federal spending would you support cutting? And conversely, what will your priorities be when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, so look, I think it's a big problem. The debt is out of control. We're spending like drunken sailors on shore leave. We're borrowing too much, we're spending too much, and we are absolutely handing out too much. I'll give you one example of a program I would stop instantaneously. By the way, I'm not even sure it's legal. President Biden has written off $170 billion of student debt so far. If he gets his way, that'll turn into almost 10x that, $1.7 trillion of all the student debt that's out there. That equates to almost $700 today for each and every one of us, or $7,000 for each of us in terms of spending of our taxpayer dollars on student debt relief as a handout and giveaway. That's the kind of spending I think we have to stop. We need to stop the subsidies to the electric vehicles. They're not necessarily environmental. There's a whole story there in terms of the green climate, the green subsidies. We need to stop that. There's a lot of unaccountable spending. We need to bring accountability to it, but I'm out of time. The list is long.
Obviously, it is a difficult question. 60 seconds isn't a lot of time, but give us your thoughts. Mr. Hamlin.
You know, Milton Friedman once said, never in the history of mankind was inflation caused by consumer spending. It has forever and always been a function of government overspending. And that's the problem we have right now. The government spending is completely out of control. And if we want to get the inflation under control, we need to get government spending under control. So I would advocate for a complete freeze on government spending. You know, when you come on an accident scene and someone's bloody, you stop the bleeding. That's the first thing you do. So we need to stop the bleeding. We need to stop the spending. We need to freeze government spending, first of all. Now, the other problem we have, I think, are these late-night bills with the omnibus and the endless pork. So I think we need to get rid of the pork and, as I said, just freeze the budget right here.
All right, thanks very much. Ms. Williams, same question.
Well, I studied the legislation process and U.S. Congress' #1 job, controlling power of purse and budgeting process. And last time we had the 12 appropriation balanced budget bills were under Clinton and a Republican-controlled Congress. And we keep spending money that we don't have. We're over-promising, and we continue borrowing and printing. That's why young people cannot afford anything, because inflation is a taxation on the middle class, our senior citizens who have to pay out of pocket for everything is going up. So I think we need to make a tax cut permanent. We need to cut the budget, cut the government spending. And for example, we send $175 billion to Ukraine. How do we pay for it? Borrow from China or printing money pay for it? The math does not add up. If you want to put our people first, then we need to put the priorities in our country to spend on our people. And my opponents might have different views on that.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Next question comes from a student reporter from the New Englander here at New England College. It's campus newspaper. Jason Stovall, stand up, and let's start with Mr. Hamlin.
Candidates, you have expressed some measure of support for former President Donald Trump. The phrase, "Make America Great Again," has unified his supporters. In your opinion, when in our history was America great and why?
The founding fathers, they all read their Greek and Roman history. I recently read a book, Rubicon, about the history of ancient Rome. And I think the Constitution that our constitutional republic stands on is the greatest thing in our nation. I'm a big history buff, and when people ask me about term limits and changes to the Constitution or changes to the Chief Justices, I go back to the founding fathers. They all knew their ancient Greek and Roman history. So what makes America great is the Constitution that we all rely on. It's a profoundly, we're approaching the 250th anniversary of our country. So if you ask me the greatest thing about our nation, I would say it's the Constitution and the three branches of government and this construct that the founding fathers came up with.
Ms. Williams, when was America great and why?
America is an exceptional country. I had to learn about America as a college student in China. The Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution are the two most important founding documents brought me to this country. In my eyes, America is the last stand on earth to defend those ideals, which is freedom, free market, capitalism, free enterprise, and the rule of law and meritocracy. Right now, they're all under attack. American First Movement is for the people, American people's movement, because regular people are forgotten, not represented by our politicians in the swamp D.C. That's why you have this MAGA movement. MAGA movement actually means the people who sometimes independents, former Democrats, they all join this. But I would like to say we will focus on America and take our country back to the prosperity and the world peace and rule of law and meritocracy.
Mr. Manager Armani, same question for you, sir.
Sure. Look, America's had lots of times when it's been great. There's lots of times when we offer the equal opportunity to all. The American dream is what makes America great. It's a story of hope. It's a promise. It's a promise that everyone has a fair shot. It's a promise that we all, with hard work, playing by the rules, can get ahead, improve our lives and the lives of our children. That's what America is, and that's great. By the way, yes, we have a border problem today. But you know why? Because people want to come here. How many people are trying to bust into China? How many people are trying to get into Russia? They're trying to come here because we're a great nation, and we continue to offer amazing opportunities. Now, there's threats to those opportunities. The socialist agenda, where people are focused on equity of outcomes. That's not actually the American story. The American story is equal opportunity for all. That's the promise, that's the dream, and that's what makes America great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Jason. Great question. One of our sponsors, or our major sponsor, and one of the reasons we're able to put these debates together is AARP New Hampshire, and they conveyed a couple of questions they'd like to ask the candidates. So I'll read them. And we're going to start with Ms. Williams. The Social Security Trust Fund is expected to see a shortfall in the next 10 years. If Congress doesn't act, millions of Americans who are counting on Social Security will see cuts to the money they've earned. Do you see a path for Congress to work on a bipartisan solution to protect Social Security and for those who have earned it?
I have a promise to our seniors. I will protect your Social Security and Medicare. And if our government never looted the Social Security Trust Fund, and so-called lockbox money, we will never even have this conversation today. And our seniors are suffering today because they are paying for high inflation. And they live on fixed income to $2,000 a month. And the illegals come in and they're trying to get on Social Security. And they have more money from federal government than our seniors, our veterans get. So I will protect that. And I will work with people to talk about stop using Social Security money for other poor projects and stop using on illegals.
Mr. Moncher, same question for you, sir.
Sure. Look, Social Security is a sacred promise that's been made between workers who have contributed and the services, or excuse me, the resources that are frankly theirs that need to be paid back. So I'm a believer in promises made, promises kept. And so what we need to do is actually lower inflation and grow our economy. Deregulate businesses, allow creative destruction, economic growth, and that will give us time. And as we get more and more time, we can actually change the program for those that are really young. An 18-year-old today should not expect Social Security. They should not expect it. It is our responsibility as leaders today to reset expectations. Sorry. And so we need to get it set so that they understand that is not going to be there for them that long. And so what we need is time. And so to get time, deregulating the economy, actually allowing business innovation and creative destruction to help power our economy and grow it faster than it is today, lowering inflation, lowering interest rates, and opening up time for us to fix this problem.
I know it was an accident, but let's all check our cell phones so we don't have that happen again. Has everybody gone on this issue? Mr. Hamlin,
Yeah,
please go
I
ahead.
believe you may have mixed in Medicare and Medicaid in there with Social Security. So let me just address all together. I've got two parents, they're both 94, and they're on Medicare. And I have a mother-in-law who's 91, she's on Medicaid. And the most wonderful thing about these programs and Social Security is that it gives the elderly and the people in need peace of mind. And I think it's not just the care that they deliver, it's the peace of mind that they deliver that's important. So these programs are absolutely sacred. It's a promise we've made. And so I think we need to stick to our promise when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to the cost of living, the problem we have, the cost of living in New Hampshire has gone up by $1,000 per month since Joe Biden came into office. That's just astronomical, and that's what's really hurting the elderly in New Hampshire. There's a lot of people on fixed incomes. So what we really need to do is get inflation under control, get government, which starts with getting government spending under control.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Going to shift gears a little bit now, going to foreign policy and back to our panel with Jeff Chittister with a question about Israel and Hamas. Now let's start that with Vikram Mancharamani, please.
While we have Vikram's attention, one clarification. You disparaged drunken sailors. I will give you this opportunity to correct that for some of the veterans.
I didn't disparage them. I merely said they spend liberally when they're on shore leave. I think to each your own. I mean, that may be a positive thing for some. But
Thank you very much. Go Army, beat Navy.
Who's running for office here? Let's go, Jeff.
Serious question. The Biden administration is walking a very fine line in its effort to negotiate a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. But so far, none have been successful. As a member of Congress, what avenues of approach would you push for to try to bring an end to the conflict that has divided people here at home and threatens to escalate into a regional war?
Yeah, look, I think we need to understand, again, the root cause here. The root cause is Iran. Let's open our eyes to this actual situation. And frankly, the root cause is American weakness. The Biden administration has telegraphed weakness with its disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, with its unlocking of billions of dollars to the Iranian regime that has funded not only terrorism between Hamas, supporting Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, et cetera, but has actually fueled this problem. The other thing is, look, President Trump was brilliant by signing the Abraham Accords, which was bringing peace, and we were including more countries in that. That's, in fact, the timing problem that led to this Hamas-Israel escalation. As a member of Congress, I would absolutely, without condition, support Israel in allowing them to pursue their objectives towards peace. And whatever means they feel is necessary to bring peace in that region, that is what I will support.
A quick follow-up on that. Would you support boots on the ground of U.S. soldiers?
I don't think that's necessary.
That?
I don't think that's necessary at this point. Look, I think the key is, again, American strength. When we telegraph strength, our enemies take notice. When we telegraph weakness, our enemies take advantage. We should deter escalation through a sign of strength. Hamas loves it when Biden equivocates on our relationship with Israel. When we call for peace, Hamas sees it as an opportunity. We should let Israel do what it wants.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hamlin, you know the question. Do you agree with Mr. Mansour-Rahmani's answer?
Well, since Joe Biden came into office, the Iranians have taken in $100 billion in excess revenue, in excess oil revenue, due to his relaxing the sanctions that were in place. Under Donald Trump, between 2016 and 2020, the Iranians were on the ropes. Donald Trump killed the commander of the terror brigade, of the Iranian terror brigade in Iraq. And the left, the mainstream media said we were going to have World War III. Well, we didn't. We had peace through strength. So the $100 billion that Iran has taken in has fueled the Hamas militants, it's fueled the Houthi militants, and it's fueled Hamas. So I think, I agree, Iran is the problem in the Middle East, and we need to stop being weak with Iran. Furthermore, we have a new axis of evil, and that is Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. And we need to get them back on the ropes. We need strong leadership. We need Trump back in office to put these people back on the ropes.
And continued support of Israel?
I unequivocally support Israel. I always will. I always have.
In a scenario that includes boots on the ground of U.S. troops?
I don't see U.S. boots on the ground in Israel.
Okay. Ms. Williams, same question for you, ma'am.
You know, the Ukraine war and the Israel attack by Hamas probably will never happen under President Trump because he was fair, respected, and even though he crossed the border to go to visit North Korea and he went to China, we had peace for 4 years. No wars, and everybody respect him. And I want to always provide peace and strength. I support Israel. They have absolute right for self-defense because horrible attack happened by Hamas. Hamas backed by Iran, Iran backed by China, and China is a leader of the BRICS now, and use Chinese digital, like renminbi, as the second largest trade currency now because they dump our treasuries because our US dollar is weak. We don't have strength to project, the world peace, negotiate the world peace. And Trump was nominated 3 times for Nobel Peace Prize. He did not get it, but we need to help him to get elected. If you do not want to endless wars, if you want to prevent World War III, elect President Trump.
All right, we're going to stay with foreign policy, and we're going to stay with Lily Tang Williams here. Melanie Plenda has the next question.
Sure. As a candidate for Congress, what is your stance on the U.S. role in the war in Ukraine? And how would you balance supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression with addressing concerns about American involvement and the potential for escalation?
I condemn the invasion, condemn Putin's aggression. We supported Ukraine at the beginning, but now it's almost 3 years later. Do we have a path to victory? How much taxpayers' money sent overseas, and how much our people are paying by paying for the inflation? As I said, we need to sometimes support our allies diplomatically and technologically, cooperation, and also morally. But when you are broke, $35 trillion in debt and printing, we have to say to our brothers, sometimes my own brother, I'm sorry, your sister is broke. I cannot pay you for bills anymore. So we need to talk about this. We need to have conversations. If we do want to support, continue to send aid to Ukraine, how are we going to pay for it? What do we cut? Do we cut our people's benefits? Some even cut the food stamp to send more money to Ukraine. I cannot do that. I'm for Americans first, for Granite Staters first, if I'm elected by people.
Mr. Mansour-Rahmani, what should the U.S. role be involved in the conflict with Ukraine and Russia moving forward?
Yeah, look, earlier this year there was a bill that came to the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives that included support for Ukraine, support for Israel, support for Taiwan, and some support against cyber risks, I believe. I would have supported that bill. That was a bill that made sense. We can support our allies, not with an endless blank checkbook. We need accountability, of course. We need to have a strategy towards an end game. There is no blank check that I want to be writing, but I do think it is cheaper and better for us to stop the aggression today. I am not with Putin. I am going to support Ukraine in that situation because I don't think it's just a Russia-Ukraine situation. We've already talked about during this debate how Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea are thinking as an axis, as sort of a team. So this is a front in that battle, and I refuse to allow this evil axis to have an area where they penetrate into our world. So yes, I would have supported that bill. I'm not sure that Lily or others would have.
Well, as luck would have it, Lily's up next to find out. Well, what should U.S. role be, ma'am, in dealing with the conflict in Ukraine and Russia?
Oh, I was asking about the bill explicitly. You're
was
asking Lily?
It's time for her to answer that question involving Ukraine.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you already went on that. My fault. Mr. Hamlin.
Sure.
We'll get back to you, Lily. My fault.
Let me start with this. I think the war in Ukraine was not just a failure of diplomacy, but it was a failure of deterrence. When President Trump was in office between 2016 and 2020, we had peace through strength. Now, our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was a signal to our enemies, to this axis of evil, that we are weak. Vladimir Putin is an evil bully, and he saw our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, and that was a signal for him that we are weak. So now here we are in this quagmire in Ukraine. And personally, I think we need to have a little bit more clarity. I want to know, what is the plan? Where do we go from here? Where does the money go? I empathize with the people of Ukraine. They've done a tremendous job fighting against Vladimir Putin, and I support them. But we need a little bit more clarity. We need to know where the money's going. We need to know what is the plan. We need to know what is the strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. I apologize for the confusion. Please take 30 seconds, ma'am.
Well, you support that bill, which is $60 billion more to go to Ukraine. But on my campaign trail, I talk to regular people who are suffering from high inflation. 95% of people in District 2 tell me, we don't want you to vote for those. We want more money here. And we need more resources here, help our mentally ill, drug addicted, affordable housing for our homeless, for our veterans. Do you think that those people's needs should be our priority? So that's what I'm saying. You were with Democrats. Democrats supported Ukraine. They were waving Ukrainian flag from U.S. floor of Congress. I feel so sad.
Take 30 seconds.
That flag.
Take 30 seconds.
So Lily, I was with Speaker Johnson and the Republicans, and if you would vote against it, I still haven't heard an answer whether you would vote against it or for it. The job as a congressperson is to actually deliberate with uncertain information and draw a conclusion with the best judgment you have. I'm telling you, I would have voted for that bill to support Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Would you have voted for that? And so if you're saying no, let's remember, then you are with the Democrats,
let her answer, please.
Including the pro-Hamas wing of Democrats.
You
Would you
put
vote
me on
for it?
spot on purpose. I wanted to separate Ukraine aid, Israel, Taiwan. Why do we always have a huge supplement bill, put all kinds of stuff in it, and you don't have time in a rated bill, you're pushed to vote for it? I will consult with people in my district. Do you want me to vote for that bill? I will listen to the people who elected me. I cannot just say, hey, because leadership wants me to vote for it, and actually over half the Republicans did not vote for it, Democrats, and some Republicans vote for that.
We got to move forward.
I'm not convinced it's the best interest of our country and our people.
Appreciate
like a
that.
no.
Thank you very much.
No?
We got to move forward. We got to move forward. Next question comes from AARP. Our sponsor, we're going to go to Mr. Hamlin. 48 million Americans help their loved ones each day to remain independent and in their homes in our communities. These family caregivers sacrifice a lot of time and money and provide $600 billion annually in unpaid support, according to AARP. How would you help, as a member of Congress, help these caregivers out?
I'm very familiar with this system. My sister-in-law cares for my mother-in-law through this program. It's a fantastic program that puts money in the hands of those caregivers that are closest and that are best capable of offering the support. So to me, this is an example of government programs that work, and we need more programs like this. So I'm very familiar with it. I've learned about it over the years, and I was surprised at how well it works. So for those people that are participating in this program, I have to tell you, it's a wonderful caregiver option for the elderly, bringing family members to offer support, and it's a tremendous program that I fully support.
Sure. A lot of people with aging parents. Ms. Williams, what can the federal government do to help them out?
See, that's another thing. I just talked to a voter. She's taking care of her good friend, and she said, I cannot make it. After $40,000 a year, full-time caregiver, pay all their property taxes, all the other taxes, high food costs and other costs. She said she barely can make a living. And when I talked to her about what I would like to do, focus on her people's needs, she cried, she hugged me. I think that those kind of needs, we need to talk about it. We need to give them more support. If we can get some credits and more funding, I'm open to discuss that. But at the same time, our country is broke. So what are our spending priorities? Are we going to print more money because the government is going to give everybody more stuff? No. So we have to prioritize and trying to still balance budget and pay down national debt at the same time. So cut out pork, cut out waste, freeze hiring, and stop printing money and prioritize our people.
Mr. Monchiramani, does federal government have a role in helping out families with aging parents?
Yes. So look, I think it's a broader question, actually. It's about caregiving. And it's not just elderly. Of course, the elderly need some care, and family members, that's a burden, an economic burden. It's a loss from the workforce, and so we should support that. But it's also, look, I have a daughter with special needs. This is a disability burden, too. Caregiving is a broader topic than just the elderly, and I do think we need to support it. I think we should support it as a government. That's a role for government. We should help those that need help. That is part of being a compassionate government that provides support for those most in need. And so, yes, I do think that the programs that AARP is talking about and suggesting are worthy of deep consideration, and I think we should support all caregivers, not just those for the elderly, but those also for the disabled and those that need special help.
All right, let's go back to our panel. Melanie Plenda, next question on abortion rights, reproductive rights for Mr. Monchiramani.
Okay. Do you agree with former President Trump that abortion rights is a state's issue? And if elected, what would you do relative to reproductive rights?
So, yes, I mean, look, it is technically a state's issue right now. It is, in fact, a state's issue, and the New Hampshire law is one that I support. I think it's a decent balancing act of what the state's interests are. It really only bans abortion in the third trimester with major exceptions for maternal health and fatal fetal anomalies, and I think that's a reasonable thing. I don't believe President Trump has proposed anything at the federal level. In fact, I think he said it will not be raised at the federal level, so I think it's a state's issue.
Ms. Williams, same question for you, ma'am.
I absolutely endorse his position. Supreme Court justice took some risk personally, even gave that back to state. Our government should not mess with that. And I already told people again and again, when I get elected, I will not vote for, against, or in between, because it's an absolutely state issue. And I want to promote culture of life. Woman and unborn child, both are lives. We need to have compassion for both of them. I donate money monthly to private charity, pregnancy centers, to save a mother's future regret, to save her child. $1,000 a year, you can save a baby and a mother will thank you someday. But do it yourself. Persuade the woman and help them financially and doing counseling, showing ultrasound. What we can do as a grassroots and, instead of relying on government, I think that's the best way to use a persuasion instead of government force.
Thank you, ma'am. Same question, sir.
Is the father of two young daughters, 20 and 22. I think it's important that we approach the entire topic with an appropriate measure of dignity and empathy and respect for the young women that might find themselves involved. When it comes to New Hampshire's laws, I fully support New Hampshire's laws. We have a 6-month limit with a late-term abortion restrictions. It's a common sense consensus that works for New Hampshire. I do agree with President Trump that it's a states' rights issue. But I go on to say, what's right for California is different than what's right for South Dakota. And what we have in New Hampshire is something that works for New Hampshire. So it's a common sense consensus that works for New Hampshire. Now, when it comes to abortion overall, I think we should do everything we can to lower the overall numbers with access to reproductive health care. So I support increased access to reproductive health care.
All right, thank you very much. We're just about out of time. It's almost time for our closing statements, but give a little time to kill. So by a show of hands, who among you support term limits in Congress? That's unanimous. I said the bipartisan.
My father's 94, and his entire life he's been begging for term limits. So if we can get term limits, he would be very, very happy.
All right.
I signed a pledge 2022. I will co-sponsor or sponsor a term limit, which is 3 terms for U.S. House and 2 terms for U.S. Senate. And I'm willing to sign again. You should ask everybody who's running, sign this, include Democrats who will debate later.
Sir, feel free to expand on your hand up.
Sure. Look, I think term limits are absolutely appropriate. Look, send me to Washington, D.C. if I can't do the job in 4 to 6 years, or if that's what it takes, then you shouldn't want me. Frankly, you should have fresh blood. I think it's important. Let me give you one quick example. Nancy Pelosi was elected to office when I was in middle school. She's still in office. And I'm not in middle school.
That was pretty good.
And now I have a son in high school. Like, this is too much.
All right. All right, time now for the closing statements. And we drew earlier, so you would go first and last. So we're going to start with Mr. Hamlin, sir. Take 90 seconds.
Sure. From being an Eagle Scout to tutoring in Harlem, service is at the very core of who I am as a human being. And I'm running for office to serve the people of the 2nd Congressional District. Now, tonight you've heard the 3 of us. And, you know, we're all Republicans. We're very similar in many ways. So I'd like to point out a few differences. Very quickly, I'm a common sense conservative, and I share the values of the people of New Hampshire. Second of all, I've got very specific, articulated ideas on how to solve the biggest problems we face, which is the open border, the government spending causing inflation, and the rising crime. Now, when it comes to the border, if it meant bringing in 5 Army divisions, I would support that. We need to build a wall. We need to bring in technology. We need to do everything we can to build that wall. What's more is we need to declare war on the drug cartels that are killing our people. Since Joe Biden took office, more people have died of drug overdoses than Americans died in World War II. It's an absolute crisis. Third thing is, I fully support Donald Trump. We were safer when he was president, and I look forward to him being back in office again. And the last difference is, from working on a farm to being an international energy trader, I bring a unique set of skills that's rare in Washington and unheard of in this race. So I look forward to taking my skills to Washington, to bringing common sense, conservative leadership back to D.C., and to representing the people of the 2nd Congressional District. So I'm Bill Hamlin. I'm asking for your vote to bring common sense, conservative leadership back to Washington.
Thank you, sir. Vikram Shiramani, please.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for spending the time here today. Look, Washington's broken. We all know it. What we need are people with real-world experience, people that have spent time in the private sector. As I mentioned earlier, I've signed the front of a paycheck, not just the back. And I think that's important because I understand how regulation hurts economic growth. I've spent time teaching and writing and thinking and working with people in the private sector about economics and how we can create inflation and how we can end inflation. And so there's a recipe. It's time to undo it. Look, President Trump and Vice President Vance, as he will soon be, both of them have a combined less than 6 years of experience in Washington, D.C. Contrast that with the folks on the other side. Harris and Walz have all of their lives on a government paycheck. There is a big contrast here. And what we need are people with common sense, people with real-world experience to go down to Washington and fix the challenges. So I've spent a lot of time in the 2nd District, and I've met with thousands of individuals. I've been endorsed by hundreds of them. And what I can say is this. There are 3 main problems, ones that I'm well prepared to attack on day one. First, the economy and inflation. We're going to take that. We're going to stop the spending, stop the printing, stop the borrowing, stop the handouts. Number 2, the border. We're going to secure the border. I believe in a strong border. I've always believed in a strong border, and that means 0 illegal crossings. And number 3, we're going to unify this country and restore the dream. And that means equal opportunity for everyone. That's what makes America great, and we're going to restore it again.
Thank you, sir. And the final word, Billy Tang Williams. Take 90 seconds, please.
I'm a communism survivor, and I have been politically active for 11 years. Some people don't trust me. Oh, you were born in China. Why are you running for Congress? And I hope you will do research on your own. I choose to become an American citizen. I choose to become an educator for victims of communism and Memorial Foundation, to share my stories, to let young people to know the horror of evil of communism. And I have taken personal risk to be on blacklist of China's Communist Party because I speak up in this country. So if you don't think you can trust me, how American, how much Granite Stater do you want to be me? I took a death threat from CCP to run for Congress 2 years ago. And I want to give back to this country. I want the American dream stay alive. Inflation, border crisis, censorship, and weaponized government, and all that is affecting our people, their feelings about their future of American dream. So when I promise you do something, I will do it. If you want to get something done, an Asian woman, your best bet. I will go to Congress, get the things done. I will never lie to our people. I will have a town hall. I will explain my votes. I will listen to you. Granite State is due to somebody who they can trust, go to Congress, really represent them, not special interests, not super PAC big donors. I have grassroots support. So thank you for your support on September 10th.
And I'd like to thank all of you for participating in the debate tonight. Thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. I certainly know this is not an easy endeavor, particularly in today's political environment. Best of luck to all of you on September 10th. Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you.